2019. But tonight, I keep thinking about November 15th, 2018. That was the day I walked into Argrow's house and met Dr. Kit Ford for the very first time. I really wasn't sure what to expect when I drove up to that address in Davenport, but of course I knew that something and someone was very special behind that front door. I was there to meet one of our 8 Jefferson Award nominees for 2019. It was a nomination that came from Dr. Kit's sister. And this is something that I have never told Dr. Kit or anyone. When I printed out the nomination application that her sister filled out, there were 2 pages, but I never saw the second one until after our interview. That second page held Dr. Kit's very personal, scary, and incredible story of survival. So when our station chose her as one of our 8 nominees, we chose her based on what was on that first page, the concept of Argrow's house that she created, not realizing what else was behind this motivation and inspiration. When I sat down for our interview that November morning, I heard Dr. Kit's story for the very first time in her own words, in her own voice, and from her own eyes. And I've never, ever been more moved in my entire life. She said, when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I became a survivor myself. He was a serial rapist. He received 46 years in prison. And so I think part of my empathy, she said, for other women is understanding the trauma of something like violence and abuse against the mind, body, and spirit personally, but also knowing that healing is possible. Oh, it's a fight sometimes, it's a journey, but thanks be to God, it's possible. And then the doorbell rang, and our interview got interrupted. One of Dr. Kit's interns, an Augustana student, was there to pick up some clothes for a woman in need and her children. While Dr. Kit is working with her, I am just sitting there in the middle of the soap room thinking, what was that? My mouth was just wide open. First and foremost, how did I miss this detail? How is this even possible? A woman who is so accomplished, so smart, so kind, so generous, how could she be a victim? Of course, I quickly learned that Dr. Kit is all of these things not because she's a victim, but because she's a survivor. Many bad things happened in my early life, she said, and I'm sure other things will happen in my life. But to realize that, okay, these bad things happen. I can journey through these things and I can use it to help someone else. I think having that type of perspective in life are the type of people who can help to literally change the world. And I don't have to tell you how true that statement is, do I? You're here tonight because you know that Dr. Kit is changing the world through Argrow's house. It is an honor to serve as your mistress of ceremonies this evening. It has been an honor to tell Dr. Kit's story, the story of Argrow's house, and follow her journey this year from the QC to DC and back. More on that important date soon. But you and I both know that the biggest honor is having Dr. Kit here in our community, helping our community, and sharing that mission across our area and now across the country. So without further ado, here's the founder and director of Argrow's house, my beautiful friend, Dr. Kit Ford.
I've been a chaplain throughout my life, and it's ridiculous because I'm here with a patient who's suffering, and I'm the one who's crying. They're like, "Are you okay?" I'm so sorry for crying. But thank you all so much for being here. Oh, I'm so grateful. I was just over here with Sister Mary, and I just looked. I was like, "Whoa, we filled the room tonight." So thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. I see a lot of familiar faces, and I see a lot of new faces too. So welcome to the Argrow's house community, the family, the village. You know, that's one thing about this work. It takes a village, literally, So thank you for being part of the village. Wanted to recognize our board of directors who work relentlessly and so unselfish with their time. So if you all would please stand, our board of directors who've helped us from the beginning. There are about 12 of you here. If you all would please stand and give them a hand. To Kristen, thank you for being here. Thanks you to my husband, Reverend Ford, for allowing me to stay out really late all the time. And extending compassion to me. To all the volunteers of Argrow's House, all of our donors, supporters, thank you. We're grateful to God for you. All of our sponsors who are here, who my husband's going to share, and the women of Argrow's House. I see you all in the room. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Right? You never have to do this alone. Look at the village, right? You never have to do this alone, okay? We're always here for you every step of the way, okay? So, Argrow's House. All right, so we've been in existence for about only a year and a half, y'all. And we've been able to do some really good work together. Now, that's one thing that I've learned. You know, we ask for help, right? And people want to help other people. You know, from the beginning, as the video showed, our goal was to provide free holistic services for survivors. And I realized that in order to do that, you also had to empower them financially. So may my theology teaching self learn how to make soap. And no, it's been quite the journey. If you all were able to, we are launching tonight, but even in the next couple weeks, we're doing a whole major rebrand. Heather White has helped us out a lot with that. I think Heather's in the house. Heather, are you here? Hey, Heather. Heather's very good. So we have all new labels. We are working to expand our e-commerce sales. We have new partnerships with Isabel Bloom. If you see Isabel Bloom, they've created a sculpture for us this for purchase. We have a new partnership with Kinderly and Empower Tanzania. Amy and Leslie, are you here? Okay, yes, here they are. Would you all stand up as well? So Amy and Leslie, they brought two survivor-made social enterprises together. These ladies in Tanzania who create these beautiful batik fabrics. So Argro's House now takes their fabrics, and all of our gift sets are starting to go into these cosmetic bags that we're starting to make. So we're launching those tonight as well, so please do check those out. And all of the silent auction items that were 44 organizations donated. So there's some good things in there. So during the time, please do go and bid on something. So let me look at my notes here. So, I mean, over the last year, we have really worked to develop new partnerships with organizations like Family Resources, counseling, counselors, other shelters and other things, and things have really been moving forward in a collaborative way. We've been able to serve over 360 women. We've been able to employ over 10 women fleeing violence and abuse over the last year and a half. And our social enterprise is growing. So thank you for buying soap. Yes. So, you know, things are moving forward. You know, we are moving things one step at a time. With the Christians here, and I know Angie talked a little bit about it, but we won the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Award for Public Service this year. And I'm so grateful. We were talking this morning just how Channel 8 and Barb Montgomery and Tom, who've helped us so much. My sister and Barb actually nominated me for the Jefferson Award, and just that exposure has helped people learn about what we're doing. And even before tonight, we were able to raise $22,000 this summer, and we're halfway with paying off that mortgage, and prayerfully we'll raise the rest of it. Moving forward with being debt-free with our mortgage. and also our business, we can serve even more women and children. So again, I'm so grateful. What does the future look like? You know, the sky is the limit. I always say, and I see Laura. I see you, Laura. I always say, one day we're gonna have a mansion overlooking the Mississippi River. And, you know, my dream is that, you know, that mansion overlooking the Mississippi River will be a safe place where women and their children can live for 6 months to 2 years, where they can have employment through Argrow's House, receive these free holistic services, but have a safe, warm place to call home as they transition and get the strength to move forward in their life. And also that industrial space so that we can keep growing our business. So things are moving forward. We're in 16 retail locations now and continuing to move forward and grow. So thank you again so much for being here. I'm grateful to God for you and looking forward to having a good program together. All right, we'll talk to you later.
I have a wonderful assignment because I get a chance to thank some great people and institutions that do wonderful things and allow events like this tonight to happen. But the congratulations start local first before we mention all of the wonderful sponsors. With that said, if you would put a smile on your face and look to the left and right and say to that person, I'm glad I'm sitting next to you, that'll start tonight. All right. Absolutely love research. I love finding new things about life itself. I read a statistic that said 1 out of 3 people is exceptionally gifted, talented, and capable of changing the world. Look to the left and right and say, he's talking about me. 1 out of 3, yeah. With that said, we've had a number of wonderful sponsors to help come alongside and push the mission and provide financial support. Of course, we've made mention of an array of 44 different individuals, companies, and institutions that donated the auction items, and so that is big. Would you help me to celebrate all those? Now for the list of our Platinum Hope sponsors. And I'll give a category and then we're going to celebrate. I believe in affirming what we want to see more of. I want to celebrate those that have made sacrifices and commitments as well. Our Platinum Hope sponsors are Quad Cities Investment Group, Hughes Camp Collins Investments, and Marzy's Law for Iowa. Would you help me to celebrate each and every institution? Thank you. Our Gold Hope sponsors, Genesis Health System, Unity Point Health Trinity, Figge Art Museum, Cribs Landscaping, First Midwest Bank of East Moline, Heritage Church, Quad Cities Women Outdoor Group, JC's of the Quad Cities, Iowa American Water. Would you help me to celebrate each and every one? And our Silver Hope sponsors, Barb and Tom Montgomery, Budget Blinds, Gathering of Women, Carla and Dan Ostrowski, Mr. and Ms. Hunt Harris. Would you please help me to celebrate each and every one? We're in for a wonderful evening. We started out by giving congratulations and applause and appreciation for everyone. So you should feel right at home because the person sitting next to you is actually happy that they're sitting next to you. Have a wonderful evening.
He is a force unlike any other, you guys. Kristen is the founder and CEO of MAD USA, or Men Against Domestic Violence. So many times when we talk about domestic violence, we talk about women, of course. Kristen makes sure that we don't forget about the men and the real issue when it comes to this problem, and I'm so happy to see so many men in this room tonight, too. With MAD, Kristen goes into schools to talk with students, he leads training, organizes awareness events, and collaborates with other agencies. Just like Dr. Kit, that is all very, very well and good, right? But it's his story that really sets him apart. Kristen's passion for his work came as a result of losing 5 family members to domestic violence. 5. He shares that story and uses that motivation as he mentors young men and helps future generations look at domestic violence through a different lens. The impact of his life and his work is already influencing change. He was appointed to be part of the South Carolina Governor's Domestic Violence Task Force. In 2015, domestic violence reform was pushed through the state Senate, and after testifying before the Domestic Violence Committee, the Domestic Violence Reform Bill was signed into law by Governor Nikki Haley in 2016. He's also involved with several other causes, and he's committed to helping others on a daily, hourly basis. He's a captain with the North Charleston Fire Department, after all. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the Quad Cities the CEO and founder of MAD USA and another National Jefferson Awards winner, Kristen Rainey.
So first of all, good evening. I would like to, that's me? Okay. I would like to first thank God, obviously for this opportunity, safe travels, and I don't believe in coincidence. And I believe that when me and Dr. Kit met in DC, that it wasn't by coincidence. It was by faith that we were supposed to meet, and the work that we do was supposed to collide and grow into changing the world. And I would like to thank the board of directors for even considering bringing me all the way from Charleston, South Carolina, all the way up to Iowa. Obviously, it's way different. It's a lot hotter down there than it is here. They were looking at me funny in the airport because I came out with a long sleeve, and they're like, "It's hot." I said, "No." Must have never been to Charleston. But I want to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and it's love. And I asked the question, do we believe that we are born knowing what love is, or are we taught what love is? And is love a universal language that everybody knows and everybody understands? And so in my life, it was very difficult for me to answer that question. So, of course, Google is my best friend. So I Googled, what is love? As of now, love can be defined as an intense feeling of deep affection, as a verb, feeling of deep romantic or sexual attachment to someone. And one of the quotes that I saw was, to love is to feel such a strong feeling for another that you understand them in a way that very few can. And I don't want to just talk about love from a physical sense or a touchy-feely kind of love and everything is right in the world. I want to make a deeper connection of how we learn to love and how we, and what we learn and how we consider and what we accept as love. So I want to talk about layered oppressed violent emotions. And I'm pretty sure if you Google love, that would not be the definition for you. Because one thing about love is it comes to us in phases. And as children, unconsciously, our parents are our very first experience of what we consider to be love. And how many people would say amen, but that's not always a perfect picture, correct? So that's not always a perfect picture, but that is our foundation in the environment that we grew up in. And our experiences at home are directly tied to how we define love and also how we show love. So if we grow up in an environment where violence and love coexist, how can we learn to separate the two? Because love can be difficult. I'm pretty sure as adults we can agree with that as well, correct? All right, so I understand that it's a learned behavior. And it's not a coincidence that statistics say that 85% of children who grow up in environments where they are exposed to domestic violence are either abusers or they're abused. Because it's learned, it's taught. And in that first phase, obviously we're innocent, but in the second phase, what I believe is we're read often fairy tale stories of, the knight in shining armor coming to save the maiden, right? And what does that story usually tell? That a woman may be weak and needs to be saved by a man, right? So those are things that we start to believe. And then in elementary school, sometimes even middle school, if a young boy or a young girl is hit by another, they say, oh, it's just love test. Or they do it because they like you. And we don't understand the seeds that we are planting into our children's mind and teaching them that it's acceptable that someone who loves you or someone who likes you is hitting you out of love and out of affection or because they care for you. So we have to be very careful the way that we're bringing up our kids and the culture that we're pumping ourselves into. Because the very little things that we tell our children grow into an adult at some point in time. And the same things that we teach them obviously manifest into something. And one of the biggest phases, in my opinion, is that age between, I would say, 15, 16, all the way up to 18, is when we're exposed to things like the music that we listen to. We're exposed to TV, we're exposed to mass media, we're exposed to even pornography. And I talk about that a lot because a lot of kids have a false sense of reality of what relationships really are and what makes up a healthy relationship. And I feel like if we're going to talk about healthy relationships, we got to talk about it all. And the fact is these kids have this. They have this. This has no limits of what they're exposed to. So if they don't have a good example of what love is at home, and then you give them a tool of endless, whether it be good information or bad information, we're growing them into some men who don't appreciate women, some women who don't appreciate men because men are also victims of domestic violence as well, which is very rarely talked about and is very underserved because there aren't any resources for males who are domestically abused. In South Carolina, we have 17 shelters out of 46 counties, which is a shame all by itself. The fact that we're number 5 in the nation for men killing women, obviously a shame all by itself. We don't have the resources. But the only option that a male has is to go to a homeless shelter. That's the only option he has is if he's abused. There is no resources out there for him. And growing up in a household where I experienced domestic violence, it was very hard to separate that healthy part of love versus that unhealthy part of love. And growing that into a man, growing up without a father, and then trying to be a man myself. And most of you who may not be familiar with my story, may not know why you have a male in front of you today speaking about domestic violence, which is very rare because we view domestic violence as a woman's issue. And for far too long, I felt like women have always been at the forefront of domestic violence, but they are not the main contributors to domestic violence and abuse. And I felt like as men, we had to take our responsibility for our role in domestic violence, and what are we contribute to it, and what are we going to do to change it? So in 2006, on September 30th, my mom and my 4 siblings were murdered by my mom's husband as a result of domestic violence. At that time, I was not home. I was away at college in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I flew home, planned a funeral for my family, and tried to go back to school. And, you know, and I just had to really take a step back in life. And, you know, I moved away from Louisiana, moved to Orlando for a year and a half. And within that year and a half, that was the very first time within that like 5 to 6 year period that I had been by myself. I've had friends, family that I could lean on and talk to and basically be my crutch. But 30 days before my mom passed away, I got baptized. And religiously to me, when I got that news, I said, there's no way that I could take a step this huge towards my religion, and this is what God gave me in return. But sometimes you gotta listen to the whole story, right? Most of you may not be familiar with the book of Job, but that was the first thing that someone told me to read when I went to church. And it took me a long time to read it and accept it. But when I was in Florida, it was literally just me and God. And that was it. I didn't have any friends, I didn't know anybody. It was just me going to a school that was very hands-on, and me coming home, meditating, and trying to come to a realization that my family was gone, and there was nothing that was going to be done to bring them back. And so once I came to that reality and I moved back home, I started going to church again. And the first sermon that I heard that day was asking God the right questions. For 6 years, 6.5 years, I'd asked God, why would you allow this to happen to me, if you love me? And the sermon that day said that you should not ask God why, but pray and ask for guidance. And so I started to pray different. And when I started to pray different, things happened. I held an event to honor my mom and my 4 siblings that I expected maybe 5 people to show up to, all of them being family members. And we had roughly about 600 people show up. And from then, I understood the power of why God chose me to have this story. And looking back at my upbringing, which I don't even have time to get into, but looking at my upbringing and the responsibilities that my mom put on me at a very young age, prepared me for the moment that I am in now. And, you know, I truly thank her for that. And I don't like talking about her because it gets me emotional. But she prepared me for this life. Way before that I even knew that I was able to speak in public, or, you know, being that shy kid growing up in a poor environment, to being the man that I am today. And I thank her so much for that. But one of the things that I wanted to do is change the culture of domestic violence and change the way that we look at it. Because for a very long time, we've always been reactive to domestic violence. And if you're reactive to it, are you fixing it? Or are you putting a Band-Aid on it? And so I realized in order to change the culture of domestic violence, you have to educate children at a very young age. So we educate kids from 4 years old all the way up until high school, college, and we also do training with jobs and things like that. And I actually train the guys in my fire department as well, and police departments. But we teach these children at a very young age what healthy relationships look like. Because like we said, it may not always be a healthy environment at home. And you might not always can overcome the situation that they have at home. But I can go to sleep peacefully knowing that I've planted an extra seed in this child's mind that this is not the way that life has to be. There is a better life. There is a healthier love out there for you. And progressing that education from bullying and power control into teen dating and domestic violence, and teaching them the signs at a very young age, and giving them the tools that they need to not end up in those situations, is priceless. The most powerful thing I've ever had from a high school student was two things. One that went home and talked to her mom about the lessons that she learned. And her mom said, I'm so glad that somebody else is teaching you the same things that I'm trying to tell you. And that daughter told me, she said, you know, I thought my mom was just trying to be a parent and she was being mean, but just to have somebody else, especially a male, come in this classroom and tell me the exact same things that my mom is trying to preach to me, shows me that she loves me and she only cares for the best for me. And she doesn't want to see the pattern repeated. And the second thing was a young lady, after our first day, she came to me the next day and she said, you know, I told my boyfriend, I said, look, the things that we have going on, it may not be physical, but we are heading in the direction of a toxic relationship and an unhealthy relationship. And if these things don't change, we're done. And I would say to give a young woman that kind of power at that age to say, I want to live a healthy relationship, I want to be in a healthy relationship, is God-given. Because at the end of the day, the one thing that all of us have in common, whether you're a man or a woman, is the fact that we all came from a woman. And we should cherish that. We should cherish our queens. I say it all the time. A lot of people may not like Tupac, but he said something very true. He said that we will raise babies who will hate the ladies. And the thing is for years we have not cherished our greatest gift of this world, which are women. They give birth. I've had a guy argue with me before, will we give the seed? I said, yes, we do. The question is, are you carrying that child for 9 months? Without that woman, that child does not exist. And if you cannot cherish that, or if you can't cherish your queen like you do your mother, or like you expect your sister to be cherished, what example are you leaving behind for your daughter? Because men, your daughter, matter of fact, how many of y'all have daughters? Raise your hand. All right, that's a lot. All right, so the important part of that is, as men, treat your wives, treat your queens as if your daughter's watching, because she is. And the way that you treat her is the exact same man she's gonna look for. And I've heard plenty of guys, oh man, God put his hand on my daughter, I'm gonna kill him. Okay, but you have to look at the seed that you're planting, and you got to take responsibility for your role and what you're putting into your daughter and what she's seeing. Because the only thing she's doing is following in the path that you're treating that mother. So sometimes we have to chastise ourselves and understand that as men, I'm not perfect. But the thing is I have to be able to check myself and know when I'm doing wrong, and know when another man's doing wrong, and being man enough to challenge him on that. And I thank you again for just the invitation, and I thank God just for the award and being able to meet you, meet your husband, and to come to Iowa. Tomorrow is a very, very special day. I know today's a special day, but tomorrow's a special day as well. And it's going to be Dr. Kitt's birthday. So, I am not a singer. So, I'm just going to count. And we're going to sing. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear kids. Happy birthday to you.
All right, thank you. Y'all didn't have to do that. North Carolina coming out. Y'all did not have to do that. Oh, well, thank you, Kristen. Let's give Kristen another hand. something as intense as losing his mother and 3 siblings to domestic violence, and using that pain and to turn around and do something good to help change the world. What a powerful story and a powerful testimony of hope. So thank you, Kristen, for the good work that you do. We appreciate you. Hey everyone, so we're going to have some time to be together and share, and then also as for a silent auction and products. But one of the reasons we're here, we're doing a fundraising gala. As I said before, our sponsors have helped us and assisted us in raising $20,000. We literally have had $40,000 at the beginning of the summer. Now we have $20,000 left for our to pay off our mortgage, so that we can be debt-free moving forward. So right now, we just ask you to consider donating to Argrow's house. Right here, everyone should have a sponsor or a pledge card on your table, and it's broken down to survivor employees and their hourly wage. So we ask that whatever you are willing and able to donate, every dollar matters. It helps us move one step forward to paying off that mortgage so that we can have another celebration celebrating that mortgage payoff. I think we can do it. I really do think we can do it. And I appreciate you all coming here tonight to show your commitment to helping to change women and children's lives in the community, healing from violence and abuse. So we're going to take some time just to look at the card and pledge. We have different things. I know Mary has PayPal set up if you're using a card, or you can put your information here. And then some of our board members will walk around to pick these up. So we'll take about 5 minutes, just if you're willing and able, put your information here, and we ask that you give as your heart desires.